I wrote a lot of books without knowing my why, and it convinced me that I didn't like writing anymore because I had such bad experiences with it.
How often does a professional writer write?
I believe that a professional writer writes every day. I believe that it is one of those skills. It's sort of like the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hour theory, that you're not going to excel at something and be able to call yourself that unless you do it all day, every day, and have for a decade or so. It kind of kills me. I meet people all the time who say, everyone tells me I'm a great writer. And I say, great, do you write every day? Well, no. I mean, people don't really get that it's like, it's like going into a gym and lifting weights one day and saying, everybody tells me I'm so good at lifting weights. Well, if you don't do it every day, how good are you going to be?
What if someone's a content writer for their job, let's say, and so they think that because I'm great at writing copy or writing stuff for, a brand, that then I can write my own story? It should be no problem.
I do think that if you have experience as a copywriter, as a content writer, as long as you're putting words together every day, you're going to be in much better shape than someone who isn't any kind of a writer. But it is a totally different skill set. I think, it's about words and language and psychology. I find actually copywriters are very interesting to me because the work is about, I became a writer because I'm fascinated with words and psychology. Copywriters are all about what's going to get someone to press buy, what's going to get someone to have a response. So I actually think that's better training than a lot of other writing.
And when you set out to be a writer, quote unquote, you gave yourself what? You said 3 pages a day? Mm-hmm. Did that change? Did you add on more to your plate?
No, I was always pretty committed to the 3 pages after rewriting the 3 pages from the day before, because that's the thing that can take hours and hours and hours. I'm one of these writers who I may over edit. It's very easy to get very caught up in like, let me just make this perfect. Let me just make this perfect. And it's sort of like perfect is the enemy of done. And, perfectionism is actually just fear wearing a disguise. It's never gonna be perfect. And when I meet people who say, I've been working on my book for 7 years, I'm like, oh God, you might be better off starting again.
Well, what was her name? Susan. She wrote Quiet, The Power of Introverts.
Cain.
She did, Susan Cain, yeah. She did 7 years, but she admits that she enjoyed the process so much because she's an introvert and it was all part of who she was. So,
right. But most people are not Susan Cain.
Right, okay. What should a writer know before writing their book?
A writer needs to know why they're writing the book. I wrote a lot of books without knowing my why, and it convinced me that I didn't like writing anymore because I had such bad experiences with it. My second book, what happened is I had written a story for Details magazine about high-class hookers in LA. And I had been given this assignment. The editor said, go do it. I'm giving you months. Go infiltrate this whole seedy underworld. I said, great. I went and did it. And I uncovered crazy things. And I had like, I had disk drives of things of people in prison. I had lists of famous people. I had the craziest things. And then my editor was fired and another editor came in and he said to me, literally, we just need this to be a story about like how rich men get off. And so I was so bitter that they had taken this amazing material I had and made it into such a boring story that my agent said to me, it was actually when we were walking in to make the deal for Party Girl, she said, they may offer you a 2-book deal. Do you have another idea? And so I just busted out with, how about a novel about high-class hookers in Hollywood? And they said, yeah, that sounds good. And that's how I got my second book deal. And I thought, well, sex sells. It's a sexy topic. People are going to like it. The problem is I'm not interested in the subject of hookers. I don't have a judgment about it. I'm just totally bored by it. So I'm writing this book that I'm bored by, thinking, oh, sex sells. I never bothered to ask myself, why do you want to do it? If I'd asked, it would have been like, well, I want to do it because I'm resentful at my editor details. Well, that's a stupid reason to do a book. So every author needs to say, what is your why? Why you, why this book, and why now? And if you can answer those questions and you know what you want your reader to do as soon as they finish writing it, then you should write your book.
And of all of your books, which was the strongest why for you?
Party Girl.
Party Girl was, okay.
Yeah, it was absolutely, yeah.
Because you felt so connected to the material, because it was basically you, but you were sort of embellishing or tying together stories. Right.
Yeah, I mean, Party Girl was very much my story, but it had a real intention behind it, and I wrote it before I knew about publishers and book deals and Goodreads reviewers and nasty comments and book sales and all the things that were going to sort of sadly poison the experience. It was just written from such a pure heart.
Where does the process of writing a book begin for you?
The process of writing a book for me today begins with saying, what am I interested in that people actually want to know about? And not kind of having this vague idea, but really going out and trying out material. Right now, I'm writing a book that's based on my podcast interviews. And I put out there on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, I'm constantly kind of taking the material I'm writing about and seeing how people respond to it. So you're getting actual test cases. You're getting A/B testing while you're working on something. So I wrote many books without ever bothering to ask if anybody wanted to read them. So now I get really clear about, is this a book people are going to be interested in? And then I start writing from there.
So you said with your second book, you weren't really that invested in the topic.
Yeah.
It was more because your article was sort of kiboshed and you thought, you know what, I want to take this. Were you surprised at the feedback that you received, that people actually did want to know about this, like sort of the client list or whatever, girlfriend experience?
I don't, no. Nobody really cared about my second book, least of all me. I turned that book in and I hated it. And then a month later, I said, can I have it back? I want to rewrite it from page 1. And my editor said, I don't think you need to. I think it's pretty good. And I said, no, I want to rewrite it. And I rewrote it and I rewrote it and I still hated it. And honestly, when I get emails from people who tell me they love it, I have no respect for them because I hate the book so much.
So do you think that's where there was a disconnect, that maybe because you didn't feel so personally invested that it translated in how it was written?
Yeah, I mean, I think what happened to me with Party Girl is I wrote this book with this pure heart and there was so much excitement around it and it was going to be this thing and it was going to be my dream come true. And then it didn't happen. And so I forgot about the pure heart. I thought, well, okay, I got to be more strategic. What will sell? What do people care about? And I used to make a really big mistake in my career, which is if somebody asked me to talk about something, I took that as a sign that I should. I became like a sex, dating, and relationship expert despite having no interest in it because somebody offered me the opportunity to do it. So my third book was about reality shows because at that point I was being asked to go on TV and talk about reality shows. I didn't have a strong affinity for reality shows. I didn't really care, but it was like I was taking what was showing up as ideas about what I should do. And I really, if I have any regrets, it's that I didn't just stop back and go, hey, do you care about reality shows? No. Okay, next, pass. Another opportunity will come along.
Which is your favorite part of the writing process?
That's such a good question. I used to love the very end, not because you were reaching the end, but because I'm not an outliner. And so I always felt like the end it was almost a spiritual experience where it would make sense. I would write myself to a place where I'm like, oh my God, if this hadn't happened here, this could never have, like, it was almost like divinely inspired, not to sound totally pompous and self-important. At this point, I do like all of it. I will tell you the part I like the least is actually where I am with the book I'm writing right now, which is after I've rewritten it and printed it and gone through and made edits, and you're just like, oh my God, I'm on page 200 crossing things out to make changes, and you're so sick of the material, that's when it gets hard. I have found a trick, which is when I'm so sick of reading my own material, it's almost like an acting exercise. Pretend I'm somebody else. How would I feel if I was Karen reading this? And I almost try to embody somebody else so that I can actually get fresh eyes.